Golden Gophers basketball player, co-host of Wolves Fan Line, Howlin' with the Homies. He's in studio 9 to noon, and he's going to stop by every so often on Tuesdays to not only chat basketball but chat sports. And that's the reason we asked you to come in now. The News du Nord, the Sports Essentials, the Sports Update music is playing because Parker is billed as a person, a young man who follows all of the local sports teams, loves all of the local sports teams. Like when we start doing this during the football season, the Vikings conversation is going to be phenomenal. On Tuesdays, if you have time, depending on obviously school and practice and stuff like that. And, you know, what Coach Johnson says, we'll always acquiesce and respect that from a timing standpoint. But that's why we opted to bring you in here for News du Nord, provided by Canterbury Park and CanterburyPark.com. Nordo, here's Parker, and here's the world of sports. Good morning, young man.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Parker, and thank you for running through this with us. And we're going to start with the Minnesota Twins. We're going to start with the hometown 9, as the Twins are 8 games above 500, and they are on a 90-plus game-ish win pace at this particular moment. But they're buried 8 games back in the AL Central, and half the fan base struggles to watch them. So, but they're winning games and all. They just took 2 or 3 from the Athletics over the weekend. They are at the Arizona Diamondbacks this evening. It is an 8:40 p.m. Central Time start. Joe Ryan is on the mound versus a Brandon Pfaadt, and the Minnesota Twins minus 125 on the money line. They are the favored road team this evening. What are your thoughts on our favorite baseball team here as they handle things down in Arizona this evening?
Yeah, give it to us, brother.
Well, no, I've been loving the Twins recently. I think we're hot. The bats are hot. Carlos Correa is playing at a extremely high level. Hey. Obviously, he makes every play in the field. It's simply incredible. We were watching that College World Series last night, and some of those guys can't make that throw, and it's just like we almost take it for granted how great Carlos is in the field. And then you pair that with a Royce Lewis, whose bat is about as hot as anyone in baseball. Hey. He's my guy. Actually, we went when we went and played in California last year. We were out in Dana Point. And we played at his high school, and they had his posters up everywhere. So that was cool to see as a Twins fan. But no, I just love our depth right now, man. We can throw about anyone in outfield. Austin Martin's awesome out there. Hopefully we get Kirilloff back in here and healthy. Kep's got that little neck injury, but
now you're showing off. I mean, now your team's winning by 28, and you're crossing over and dunking on the smallest guy on the court. You know what I mean? That was brilliant. And Parker and I were just discussing this in the vestibule. It's maybe Nordo can settle the conversation with the Twins playing the Diamondbacks tonight. Who exactly is the best Diamondbacks player? I mean, you think it's Ketel Marte. I like Corbin Carroll. Christian Walker is also in the conversation. Lourdes Gurriel is hurt, but man, as you mentioned earlier, he's hit some big home runs this year. Yeah, I think it's a conversation for a separate Tuesday. What's next?
Let's go to, you mentioned the College World Series. I think Tennessee got to celebrate. That was Game 3 last night.
Yep.
To the ice we go.
10 seconds left. 2-1 Panthers. A dream 30 years in the making is a reality. The Florida Panthers have won the Stanley Cup. Lord Stanley is coming home. You always will have a place in South Florida. Oh, my God. The Panthers have won the Stanley Cup for the first time in franchise history. Yeah! Start the celebration, South Florida. The Panthers have done it. Stanley Cup champions!
Well, first of all, I didn't know that Pete Burcich,
oh my God,
was the color commentator for the Florida Panthers. 30 years in the making, as you heard via that radio call. 30 years of franchise existence, a lot of losing, and in recent times finding their way into the playoff mix, not getting over the finish line. They do it in 7. And that was a conversation we had yesterday, PA, and Parker, you in the mix, and you feel it via your hoops career, where there's momentum shifts and moments where you can't lose or you're on absolute full tilt. And it felt like that after being up 3-0, and then the Oilers with McDavid and Draisaitl just come storming in. They tie this thing up. That's why it's so hard to come back from these deficits the way they did. And last night, a full period of McDavid and Draisaitl needing a goal Bobrovsky and the Florida Panthers standing tall. What'd you think of that series?
I think it's the greatest, in my opinion, it's the greatest trophy in all of sports.
There you go.
Just it's, and as a basketball guy, it's kind of hard to say. You got to swallow a little bit, but no, it's so special. I think you see it in all those guys. When he lifts up the cup, I think it was Alexander Bobrovsky. He lifted up the cup, and it's like that's got to be one of the most surreal moments in all of sports. But
Barkov,
yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right.
And
Captain.
I knew this, but I had forgotten. It's like hockey immortality. Who gets it second?
Yeah.
Because like Barkov is skating towards all of them.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, who's he going to give it to? This is a big moment. Who's the one? Because Barkov, he gets it for a reason. Mm-hmm. And he went to Sergei Bobrovsky, the goaltender. And then that guy gave an interview. I watched this thing for almost 90 minutes after it was done. They skated twice with the cup. and the interviews and everything. Paul Maurice, the coach for the Panthers, man, what a good interview he is. Holy cow.
I think he's the fourth winningest coach all time. Those years in Winnipeg,
right.
Maybe the longest without winning a cup, like nearly 30 years of coaching. Finally got it done.
You, Parker, you can be at the precipice. You could be at the beginning of changing something in the world of basketball. Mm-hmm. At the end of at maybe Big Ten games or maybe the Big Ten tournament, have a handshake line.
Yeah.
Handshake line.
Of course.
So you got Parker Fox and like whomever for Purdue or Indiana or whomever. Guys been battling each other the entire game. Got some elbows, some sneaky shivs. You're pushing the envelope. Tony Correnti or whomever misses it. So it's like that.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the game, you eyeball each other and you say, "Nice game, Rob."
No, I think that's that's why you play, right? It's that competition, but it's also like you respect. If you don't respect your opponent, if you don't respect the game, it's gonna come back to bite you. So I love the way that game ended. Obviously Connor's upset and mad, and he ends up winning the MVP. And you see his interview, but
yeah, he's an awful interview, by the way.
Yeah, I know. He's
not
just quiet.
It's nothing against him.
Yeah,
he's just quiet.
He's just a hockey player, I think. He doesn't really care about the other stuff. But no, I think who they went to number 3 was Calipozzo. Talk about the pecking order. And
how about that?
And Calipozzo gets it 3rd, which is like
University of Minnesota.
Yeah, and I'm got chills because I got a picture of me when I'm 6 or 7 years old skating with the Gophers, skating with Calipozzo, and like that was one of my hockey legends icons. So super cool to see him get it, and that's his first one, man. It's it's a special deal.
It reeks of respect.
Oh, yeah.
Because Oposo had been there. What, 3 months?
3 months? Yeah.
Okay, so he's going to get it before Kachuk? He's going to get it before Bennett or Reinhardt?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he does because of how long he's been in the league and the impact he had behind the scenes, as you could tell by others talking about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that moment with the handshake line and the trophy skate, it's the most beautiful thing in all of sports.
I think so, too.
I love it.
I think so, too.
That's News to Nord, brought to you by The Casino at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com, PA.
The host of the very, very controversial Double Down podcast is in studio with us. His name is Parker Fox. We'll continue to chat sports with him around the corner on KFAN. Did you watch much of the NBA Finals?
Oh, yeah.
Did you?
Didn't miss a game.
I watched 10 minutes of it.
Really?
Well, I had vocal maintenance day, so my mind was in other places. But I ran out of gas, man.
I know.
I ran out of gas after that Wolves series, and I've said this before on the radio. It's like if I had to choose, believe it or not, between I'm not going to frame it up like that. I've always enjoyed watching the NBA league-wide as much, if not more, than the NFL. So therefore, I'm an NBA guy. I mean, I was 12 years old in 1979, and my single mom scratched up enough cash to take me and a couple of friends to an NBA Finals game between the Washington Bullets and the Seattle Supersonics. Wow. With Lenny Wilkins was the coach, and Dennis Johnson was, God rest his soul, and so on. So I got bit there. Plus I played basketball, so I just I'm not saying that I'm James Naismith here, but it's easier for me to analyze basketball than it is hockey. Mm-hmm. So I'm in. But I watched so much playoff basketball because I was so bit by the Wolves. Mm-hmm. I just ran out of gas, and I'm like, I don't care who wins this freaking series.
Yeah, no, I think so many Minnesota Timberwolves fans were. It was so hard to go from such a high to such a lull, and then especially watching Dallas get beat up so bad too, where it's like you expected the Wolves to be there. You expected the Wolves to be in that position, and now we're not, and it's Dallas instead, and it's like it almost hurt. But you're right. I think I paid a little less attention than I usually do. Mm-hmm. Honestly, this Stanley Cup, I was kind of locked more into that than I was the NBA Finals, to be honest with you.
Was there any aspect of that? And I was gone at the same time for the most part as he was, so I was paying attention to the games. I was a little just emotionally drained from the Wolves' run. So it was just, it was
and that may sound stupid to a lot of people listening. I'm completely in lockstep with you, man.
It was just, and I felt the Celtics were the better team. That's not really a shocking opinion. And then they handled business. One thing though, and I don't know how much it was broken down while I was gone, but from your eye, I remember talking with you many times over the course of the Wolves playoff run, and specific the Mavs series, is making Luka defend. And the Celtics figured out how to do that in a way that nobody else had. So, without going super hardcore, Celtics won their 18th title, and it was almost like a yawn fest among some Celtics fans. But was there anything that you saw throughout that series that maybe it's like, I kind of would have liked if the Wolves had done what the Celtics ultimately did to the Mavs?
Well, yeah, I thought that series was over when I heard Porzingis was playing, and he came in with that interior defense and he showed us, there was a reason why. But, you hit the nail on the head right there. I think it was making Luka defend. You watch what Boston did all series long. Everything was set up to go at Luka. Yeah, he's a little wilted. He's a little hurt, but also at the same time, he's a very poor defender, and he doesn't want to defend.
He doesn't try.
No, he just wants the ball in his hands offensively, and he wants to do, he wants to be this offensive savant, which he is. But it's a two-way street, So I think if you watch that one back, and I think if you're the Wolves coaching staff, you're biting your nails a little bit about we just didn't make Luka defend. And I don't think that is the exact answer. There's a lot of things that go into it, but that's something that they probably want back.
But there were highlight videos of him just, an absolute Olay turnstile. And in the same sense, during that Mavs series, I'd have you in studio and with PA, or we're talking when I did some fill-in work. It's like I'm watching. He's almost. We're playing 5 versus 4, where he's allowed to just chill out for massive stretches. And maybe it was we weren't getting McDaniels those opportunities, the corner threes and some of those things. But in the end, I go back to what PA was talking about, is how, you're emotionally drained when you're watching the Mavs, who just housed you in the NBA Finals. But I'm still exhilarated, and you're going to get to hear from Coach Finch later on this hour, an earlier interview with PA. How exhilarating was that run? I'm still kind of high off of it.
It was
into tomorrow night's draft. It's Howl City, man. Basketball fandom is truly on the front burner here in Minneapolis again.
No, you're right, and it is. And I think it just the sports fandom is too. I think obviously we're all hyped up, and we know, we get everybody back. We just hear that Finch signs an extension, so he's going to be back and, rocking and rolling for, I think, 4 more years. And so there's just a lot of hype. There's a lot of excitement. But for me as a Minnesota sports fan, it's like, okay, what's next? The Wolves didn't work. All right, we got the Twins, and then, all right, Vikings are right around the corner here, and just all juiced up to simply be a Minnesota sports fan. But I know that the Timberwolves are in a really good spot. It seems that everybody's happy to be there, which is something you look for when you go into, they don't have a lot of free agents. I think it's just really Kyle Anderson. So, everybody's locked up for next year. And I think it's going to be another really special year.
Finchy received that 4-year contract extension. Pretty cool for one of the good guys and a quality coach. You have a trained eye, we don't. What do you like about him as a coach, while willing to recognize, because Chris would recognize it too, that sure, he won a D-League championship in 2010, but so then he's the lead assistant or a high-ranking assistant for Mike Malone, championship-winning coach. Nick Nurse, they were together in Toronto. So Chris has worked his way up to this spot. But still, there's room to get better, undoubtedly, and he would say that. What do you like about how he executes things, offensively, defensively, or whatever?
Well, you just talked about the pipeline that he's from, right? You talk about the Malone, all those guys. I think it's so connected in the NBA, and especially once you become an NBA head coach, the X's and O's should be second nature, right? You should know what you're doing, just like in football. Brian Flores, he knows everything he wants to do defensively. Chris Finch knows everything he wants to do offensively. But the biggest thing that I see from Chris Finch is just the way he kind of demands respect, and the guys love him. You can talk about all the different X's and O's things. You can talk about a unique 4-5 ball screen between Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns that you don't see a lot in the NBA, but it works because, it's two bigs having to either switch, or if you don't switch, then Karl Anthony Towns is getting downhill. You can talk about, Mike Conley setting up offensive stuff for Anthony Edwards to, get to his spots. But I think the biggest thing that I've seen is just the level of love that they all have for each other and respect. And I don't think you see that very often with superstars in the NBA. You get a lot of, you get a lot of personalities, but Chris Finch has kind of demanded that respect, and it's awesome to see that kind of family atmosphere at such a high level.
Tell us about Kel'el Ware. Kel'el Ware?
Yeah.
You played against him.
Played against him twice last year. Yeah, he's NBA draft is tomorrow night, right? So it's coming around the corner. He's a 7-footer, skinny guy, but he's ultra talented. He was Indiana starting center. So I was matched up against him several times. High level of skill. Came from Oregon, transferred in, was supposed to be the big, recruit in the, in the Big Ten. And, he's a really good player, man. I think he's going to excel at the NBA level. And I've seen his stock kind of rise here recently as well. He's a guy that you kind of want on your roster because he's a 7-footer that can stretch the floor and shoot it. Yeah. And he's got incredible touch inside, and he blocks everything. So I think he's going to be a guy that we see go decently early in this, NBA draft tomorrow.
And there are other players, we want to pepper Parker with, and we'll do that around the corner on KFAN. Now, Chris Finch, coach the Minnesota Timberwolves, join 9 to noon out of the gate. Coming up around the corner, we're going to replay that chat for you, and a particularly and generally speaking animated chat with Chris. There were some laughs in it. He's salt of the earth. He's the genuine article, and he got a 4-year contract extension. So 9 to noon commemorated and celebrated it out of the gate. We think you'll enjoy it. After Parker Fox. Parker, what's your Twitter handle?
I think Parker Fox 24.
Parker Fox 24. So with Twitter, like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that, which one is more important? Okay, so let's look at it this way. Which one do you enjoy the most as Parker Fox the man?
I'm a Twitter guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a Twitter guy.
Which one do you feel with this burgeoning radio/media career, which one do you find to be most important for you? Consuming information or enjoying it?
Yeah, I think consuming information definitely Twitter, but also like there's a level here on TikTok where if you get in the right space, and depends on, let's say we're talking Vikings, and there's some guys that are putting out some really quality stuff, on TikTok as well. But I think Twitter is the easiest spot to find stuff, or X as we should call it now, I guess.
Did you happen to run into any point guards during the course of your year, the course of your season, that you think would be draft worthy for the Minnesota Timberwolves? I mean, it's like I'm looking at a list of 70 players here, but I don't have your schedule from last year or the last 2 years in front of me. But like Terrence Shannon Jr., that's not a point. He's an off, right?
He's an off, but I mean, he can handle it, but probably not at the NBA level. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought Finchy put 9 to noon on the tell of all tells ever to tell 3 weeks ago when he was in studio.
Yeah.
Because he kind of did accidentally 2 years ago when he talked about the importance of 3 things. And then I left it going, holy cow, I've never heard of Walker Kessler, and they drafted him.
Yeah.
So I thought it happened again. He said because they're talking about this UCLA kid that they have on the roster. I always forget.
Jalen Clark.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Defensive player of the year.
Special.
There we go.
Yeah.
So, and then he said, so he's talking about him with, heir apparent to Conley, time cut, whatever. And then he's like, 11 of the last 12 or 10 of the last 11 Naismith Defensive Players of the Year have been pretty good in the NBA. I'm like, there it is again. Go to the Google machine. Jamal Shedd, who's this? Okay, so then I read up on him, and I'm like, bro, I was watching the game he left, and it all fell apart for the Cougars when he left. I'm like, this guy's a dog. He's a junkyard dog. He's tough. Can't meet, struggle shooting sometimes, but he's tough. So I'm like, that's it. It's going to be it. Well, I don't think it's it.
Yeah.
But he plays point. So does anybody, like Jamal Shedd, like if you watched him a lot, to be a second round type pick?
Yeah.
What do you think they're going to do, or what would you do in closing?
Well, yeah, you're right. I think the point guard is a spot, obviously that we're going to we don't need to bring him in and play right away. We got Mike Conley, however many years he can, hold on for us. So it's going to be a guy that hopefully we can kind of, draft and stash, and hopefully this guy is, he works out like a Jalen Clark, who obviously, he got hurt last year, tore his Achilles, but, he's a heck of a defender. But, I got to show some love to my guy, Cam Christie, too.
Good point.
Yeah. And I think the Wolves are high on Cam as well. With the, they got the 27 and the 37. I think that's a fair range for Cam. That's something that he's kind of heard.
Right.
In terms of, end of first round, start of second round. So
is he related to Max?
He is. Okay. Yes. Max is his older brother who played at Michigan State. Now is with the Lakers. But no, Jamal Shedd is a heck of a name. Obviously, like you said, that stat about, defensive players of the year. If you can get a guy who really loves to compete and defend in your roster, especially at the NBA, especially at this level, that's a luxury. You don't have Luka, playing the flyby defense. We can't do that in Minnesota, man.
It's a luxury having you part of 9 to noon on Tuesdays. Sooner or later, hopefully, its Hab sponsor will travel. Not as in walking on the court, taking 3 steps or more. And I really can't wait till we get to the exclusive Vikings Radio Network perch overlooking the perfectly manicured practice fields. We bring you out for some training camp, 9 to noon.
Can't wait.
Look at that big smile.
Can't wait, man. Can't wait.
Quickly, Double Down Podcast. Where do people find it?
Yeah, you find it everywhere. Apple, Spotify, all that kind of stuff. It's everywhere. And I'm getting it started back up here this summer. So look forward to it.
Appreciate you, man. We'll be right back.